and over-unders for each of.
And here are my NBA game predictions for January 28th of 2022. Tonight there is 11 games. I will be going over the spreads and over-unders for each of the games, and I got these data from FanDuel. For Detroit at Orlando, I will go with Detroit +2. Personally, overall for this spread, I would not touch this game spread-wise, as both teams, they're not playing too great their last 10 games, but their games have been close, and that goes for both of them. So I do expect a close game throughout. I don't expect either team to really pull away and stay ahead the whole entire game. But if we were to bet on one of the teams to win, I'd likely bet on Detroit, as they've won 4 of their last 10 games, while Orlando's only won 2 of their last 10 games. So that's why I lean towards Detroit overall. But as I said before, I would not bet on the spread on this game at all. I'd probably lean towards Detroit, +7 or 8, just to give you more breathing space. But I think +2 is very close. But for the over 212.5, I think that's very possible. That's why I'm taking the over, as both teams, most of their games, both of them have 100, 110 points or somewhere in there, between that 102 to 115 range. So as long as both of them just hit that range that they have been hitting, they should hit an over 212.5. For the Lakers at Charlotte, we lean towards Charlotte -7. So the Lakers played last night, and they didn't play too hot. Well, they scored 87 points, if I remember correctly. And then Charlotte in their last games had 158, 156, some absurd amount like that. And do I expect both these teams to repeat those performances? No, but I do expect Charlotte to come out and win and then cover the spread. I think that's more likely that Charlotte will cover the spread than Lakers be within the +7. So that's why I'm taking Charlotte -7, because the Lakers' defense is not that great. But that also goes too for Charlotte. But I think Charlotte's offense, between LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, there's just a lot more firepower on the Hornets than the Lakers. So hence why I'm going for over 230, because their defenses, neither team will slow each other down, and it should be a shootout overall. I don't think Charlotte really has anyone to slow down LeBron, and I don't think the Lakers will put out the heart to try and slow down Ball or Bridges or Oubre if he's playing that game. It's just the 3-point shooting for Charlotte, I think, will be too much for the Lakers. For Boston at the Hawks, so both teams are very hot right now, as Atlanta, they won 5 in a row. Celtics on a 3-game win streak, but I'm going to lean towards Boston's +2.5, as overall I think their last 10 they've been playing better. They're healthy. Actually, the Hawks are healthy too, so it's can't blame this game on injuries overall for either team. But I think Boston is kind of the more well-rounded team, because if this game does go to a shootout, Boston has Brown or Tatum, while Hawks have Young and Herter. But I'd take the Boston duo over the Hawks duo. And then defensively, I think Boston can play a team defense better than the Hawks can. So that's why I'm going to just lean towards Boston. No matter how the game goes, if it turns out being more offensive or more defensive, I think Boston will have more answers overall. There's going to be more paths to victory for Boston than there is for Atlanta. Hence, I'll be going with Boston. I will be going over 219, as I think this game will probably go the shootout route, as they are playing in Atlanta. I think Brown and Tatum, they'll get their stats. They should both get over at least 20. And then Trae Young, he should also get his stats too. He might have to work a little harder for them, but I think he'll still get them. But I think it should be a high-scoring game, a fun game to watch. For the Clippers at the Heat, we went with Miami -6.5. The Clippers, they're just playing that 500 ball, so hard to bet for them. And with the Heat, with just more of their players back, and they're sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference, flipping between the first, second, and third seed. I think they want to stay in that range, so they should come out and just try and win every single game, and against the Clippers, who are down their two best players. So the Clippers aren't going to go down with a fight, but I think Miami, they're going to have to step on the gas immediately and just keep on going the whole game, because we just saw the Clippers come back from 35 down to win, and that's impressive in their own right. It's like, you got to keep the Clippers down when you have the lead, and I think the Heat, they have a better defense, and they can slow down the game, just make it hard for the Clippers to score, and I think that will give Miami to win. Hence, I'll be going the under 217.5, as the Clippers, they've had some low-scoring games without like George and Leonard, so I can see them just having a tough time trying to score against the Heat, and then the Heat, they're not the highest-scoring team either, so hence the under 217.5. For the Pacers at the Thunder, so this, before I even give the spread, like you can see it's OKC -1. I personally would not touch the spread on this game, as you really don't know which team's going to show up. It's like, of course, the Pacers they're going to try, like, just to keep the game close. Like, even though their players, like their main players, are injured, they play with a lot of heart, and they do keep their games close. And then OKC, their games have been close-ish, like the last 10, but they've lost most of those games. Like, they're currently on a 6-game losing streak, and I think this is the game that they will break it if I were to bet on it, but personally, I would be not betting on the spread for this one. Overall, I think the Pacers, they can keep up with scoring if this goes to a shootout, and defensively, I think they can also play some defense, and that goes the same for OKC, because you got Alexander, who can light it up. You have Dort, who, you leave him open, like he can go off, and even he can create his own shot. Then Indiana just has just like a not so like random person, but it's like there's always some person that you don't expect to just make some baskets, like Sykes or Herter, or not her, but I'm forgetting his name, but the Pacers just have that one player that will keep them in the game, or just a few that just keep them in the game late, and just they can kind of sneak away with the win, or just like keep the game close overall. And I think that's going to happen for both teams on this side. It's just who's going to show up and like make the difference. And that's why I'm going with the over 216.5, as the Pacers can score a lot, and I think OKC is going to score a decent amount this game too. For Portland at the Rockets, I'm going with Portland -2. Portland are 6-4 in their last 10, so that just means they're figuring some things out over in their neck of the woods. And then Houston, they've been struggling, so I just go with Portland -2, just because they're just playing better, and the Rockets have fallen into a slump. I think overall, very little defense will be played, so I'll be going with the over 233, as if Portland don't score a lot this game, I'll probably be taking the under almost every time for like the next few games, but they should be able to hit that over 120, I feel like. Then Houston, they as long as they get going early on, they can score a lot. It's just getting the positive energy, just the flow into the game, that they usually can hold on to that, but the moment they hit a wall, they will hit that wall. But Portland should come away with the win. Like, you got McCollum back, so he's just there, kind of guide them through there. Then Nurkic is just kind of like the anchor of the team, so as long as he stays out of foul trouble, like, Portland should come away with the win. For the Nuggets at the Pelicans, I'm going with Denver -6. So no one's really going to slow down Jokic on the Pelicans, unless like Valanciunas can slow him down in the paint. But I think overall Jokic is a little too creative for the Pelicans. I think he should have his way with them. I think Pelicans will be able to keep this game close. I don't expect this game to be a blowout. I think this will be decently close, but I think Denver will just pull away towards the end. I could understand if you want to bet the Pelicans +6, because personally I just would take Denver on the money line, but I think it's more likely that Denver will win big than it is to be like a 1 to 2 point game for this. But overall, I think that Denver should win. The Denver offense, that should be the main factor why they win, rather than their defense, because I think Valanciunas, Um, he'll have his way, and then I think Gordon. I'm pretty sure Gordon will be the one guarding Ingram, so I think Ingram will have a tough time scoring the ball. So you might want to bet the under on one of his point totals, like an under 25 or 24 somewhere in there. As I think there's enough athletic wings on the Nuggets to try and slow down the wings for the Pelicans, and then I would just say Denver should win this. And I would bet heavily on Jokic, so it's like, I would say probably like 10 plus rebounds, but I know like the over-unders are always like 14.5. It's just Valanciunas is a big body, and then points-wise for him, at least over 26, and assists like +7. For the Jazz at the Grizzlies, we're going with Memphis -3. The Jazz have lost their last two. They're still without Mitchell and Gobert. And they did put up a fight against the Suns, which I honestly expect that to be like a bigger win by the Suns, but obviously didn't have most of their players. Well, some of their players, but the Jazz, they do keep it close. They do come and like fight, and they're a hard team to keep down, but I think Memphis wants to keep that third seed over the Jazz, who are in the fourth seed. The Jazz have been struggling, and I do continue to see that happening, and that's why I'll be taking Memphis -3. I'd almost take them just a couple more points, like maybe -5. I will expect under 224, as the Jazz offense has been struggling too. Like they've been having that low 100s, like mid 90s kind of scores, and I expect Memphis kind of keep the Jazz to that tune. Like the Jazz shouldn't be covering that 110 mark. And the Grizzlies, the Jazz can play some decent defense. Do I expect the Grizzlies to pump out 120? No. Would I be surprised? Not really, but I think the Grizzlies will probably be in that 114 range. So that's why I'll be going the under 224. For the Bulls at the Spurs, we're going with Chicago -2. I think with DeRozan being back and Levine, I think DeRozan will want to have a good game against his former team. And I think that Chicago -2, that's kind of weak, but that's what the spread's saying. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that gets moved up to like the 4s. But I think the Bulls should win by, I think around like 5 or 6. Like that's somewhere where I would put it. Yeah, because with Levine and DeRozan, I think that's enough offensive firepower to really like keep up with the Spurs if the Spurs get hot, and there's enough like defensive skills on the Bulls to really like put up a wall against the Spurs, like really discourage them, lower morale for the Spurs, and just kind of solidify the win for the Bulls. And also you have Vucevic in the paint, which he's a decent rebounder, so if the Spurs are missing shots, he can just grab those boards and just like end the defensive possession, just continue to offense. And then for the Spurs, they're gonna have to play like phenomenally on offense to even like have a chance to beat the Bulls. As Bulls once again top the Eastern Conference, while the Spurs towards the bottom. I do expect the Bulls to really slow down the Spurs, so that's why I'm going with the under 228, because the Bulls, they shouldn't be scoring like over 120. It will probably be like in that 115 range, and that means the Spurs would have to be in that like 113 to 110 range to really force an over, so that's why I'm going with the under 228. For Minnesota at the Suns, so Minnesota played last night, but they are younger, so and it was decently close, but I think the Suns should take advantage of the Timberwolves overall. I think -9.5 is kind of a steep spread, but I think it's more likely the Suns will win by a lot rather than this be a close game. Like personally, I'd move the spread down to more like 6 points. But Suns should win. They shouldn't have a problem. They'll continue their win streak. They're also playing at home, so that means Minnesota had to travel to the Suns on a back-to-back. So another point against the Timberwolves. I will be going over 231.5, as Minnesota, their games tend to be a little more high scoring, and like even for a Warriors game last night, that was a high scoring Warriors game. So I expect more against the Suns. I think 231 might be a little high, but maybe towards that 228 over. But I wouldn't be surprised over 231.5, to be honest, because the Suns can get hot from 3. Minnesota just can score the ball a lot overall. For player props for the Suns, I would expect Chris Paul to have a good night on assists, and Booker to probably be over 25 points. And then for the Wolves, like either Edwards or Towns or both of them, they should easily both have over 20. But I wouldn't. It's like which one decides to score like that over 25, 30 points, and it is on the back-to-back, and both of them scored over 25 last night. It's like which one's going to do it again? Personally, I just lean towards Towns, as the big men right now for the Suns are injured, so it's just down to Biyombo. But Suns should win, high-scoring game. Knicks at the Bucks. I'll be going with Knicks plus 9.5. Bucks are too random. I can't bet on the Bucks just to win games, but like I assume the Bucks should win this game. Like I'd take the money line, but I'd rather take the Knicks plus 9.5, as that pays better. And the Knicks, they play decent defense. Bucks play decent defense. Just like, can the Knicks like score enough to stay within that 9.5? Like that's the big thing. So I will be going under 216. I think that's almost like a little high scoring for this game, but I think 216 is pretty safe for the under, as Bucks haven't been scoring that much, and Knicks are just notoriously have not been that high scoring of a team all season. Thank you for watching. Comment any of your thoughts on the predictions. I'll try in future videos try to weave in more of those player props. Maybe not like written out, but I'll try to like include them in the video. Maybe include them in the descriptions. But that's just something I'll try to work on. And once again, thanks for watching.